This Mothman sighting video is going to start out with a November 26th sighting from 2019. This sighting comes out of Chicago. It comes from a truck driver. He reported his sighting to the UFO Clearinghouse, which is an online source for odd encounters. While this site describes itself as being a portal for the truth, now the witness had a stop at O'Hara's International Airport in Chicago. While there, he decided to take a smoke break, saying that it was around 6:30 p.m. that evening. As he walked outside smoking his cigarette, he noticed some movement. It was just on the other side of the fence. As he watched this creature move on the ground, its movement reminded him of a bird moving, with what appeared to be little hops, not like a person at all just walking across the ground, but with the body of a human-like creature. This monster had wings that flopped as it moved. He says that he thought the creature was around 7 foot tall, going by the fence the creature was next to, with its wingspan being around 6 foot. The witness also said that this thing looked like some kind of demon, or maybe a goblin. It was solid black in its color, with the creature walking out into the field and disappearing into the darkness. The witness truly believed he was in the presence of a demon that night. Well, if it wasn't a demon, then some kind of creature that embodies pure evil. This witness did say that he had another experience when he was a child in Mexico. In this sighting, he said that he saw a large black-winged creature just flying around an open field, that this thing was just circling the field. Maybe it was looking for a place to land, when all of a sudden this creature let out a very loud screeching sound. Then the creature flew off into the surrounding forest. Now this was a nice sighting, I think. He was able to describe the movement of this creature, with it moving like a bird. And now that makes sense to me. With this creature having wings moving on the ground, it may be similar to the movements of a bird on the ground. Now the only trouble I have with this sighting report is that this creature was around 7 feet tall, while only having a 6 foot wingspan. I don't know if it could fly at the wingspan that short for its size. Now maybe if each wing was around 6 foot, that would make more sense to me. That would put it with a wingspan of over 12 foot. I think it would work way better, at least in my opinion anyway. And please, if you have an opinion on this sighting, drop me a comment down below. Now I know they say this myth or legend began in 1996, but I did find a story out there that is said to be from 1950. If it is true and not a story, from after 1996 that was just put out there. Now, in this story, a 16-year-old named Harold was just out for a walk near his house in a small town in Virginia when he came across a young boy laying on a fence. Harold spoke to the young boy, saying hello. When the boy didn't respond to him, he decided to keep walking. As he turned to leave, the boy finally spoke, telling Harold that he wanted to go to his house. "You're going to walk me up to your house," said the mysterious boy. That's when Harold noticed his eyes. They were black as coal. Every instinct Harold had said to run. Yet he just stood there looking at the boy with the black eyes. Now, as the boy seemed able to read Harold's mind, he said, "Now, don't you run away from me. You're going to take me up to your house." That seemed to have been enough to snap Harold out of his trance-like state that he was in. As Harold started to run home, he could hear what sounded like a bobcat scream coming from behind him. He never looked back to see if it was the strange boy making the sound, so he wasn't for sure if it was him or not. But with Harold being terrified at this point, he just ran. When he made his way back to his house, he told his parents. And knowing Harold, his parents actually believed his story. As his father went out of the house with his gun in his hand, searching for what he thought could even be the devil himself, or at least one of his creatures. After looking for a while, he never seen the black-eyed child. Now Harold's mother demanded and took him to a local priest to be safe. With the blessing from the priest, Harold never seen the boy again. Now, like I said, this sighting is said to have happened in the 1950s, 46 years before Brian Bethel's sightings and writings. So is it possible this story was put up on the internet as something that was just totally made up? Well, I don't know, guys. So y'all drop me a comment down below and let me know what y'all think. This gnome sighting comes out of Sancho Corral, Argentina, from 2011. Now, Argentina has been a source for many gnome sightings over the years, with many of the encounters being terrifying and frightening, saying that some of the sightings are of evil gnomes, that these creatures were malevolent and violent, that in 2011 Argentina had a rash of gnome sightings that were both violent and malevolent, with attacks on children and the elderly throughout the Sancho Corral, Argentina area. These creatures were said to have attacked children while they were riding their bicycles by pushing them over and kicking and hitting them. While it was also said that the elderly was treated the same way, with some of the gnome's victims being beaten until they were unconscious. The gnome was said to be fierce and vicious with its victims. It was described as having a large pointed hat, with some reports having the little monster ranging from about a foot tall to at least a little over 2 foot tall, which could mean that it was more than one of these things attacking people. While it also had what was described as elf ears, that they were long and pointed ears on this creature, with this creature being responsible for at least a dozen attacks on residents. The local police department was swamped with sightings of these creatures and their attacks. The police became so flooded by so many complaints from truly terrified residents that the local government and police department declared a state of an emergency and implored to the residents to stay inside at night. Well, that little report is kind of spooky, knowing that the police and government wanted them to stay inside. Looking into this story is the only time I've ever heard of a state of emergency being called for a creature like this. So yes, that's kind of interesting to me anyway. Now this next sighting that's coming up is out of Argentina also. It's from the Santa Fe area in 2011. Wow, 2011 again. I guess that was a good year for the little gnome creatures, wasn't it? Now this spooky account comes from a couple that noticed their young son Benjamin, saying that he had started acting and behaving a little strangely, that the toddler would often be seen talking and playing with someone at nap time, with his parents thinking that the little boy must have just made up an imaginary friend. So not thinking much more about it, they kind of dismissed the behavior until one day in January of 2011, when the child's mother noticed Benjamin was playing and talking to something in the hallway, but that he was acting weird as if someone was really there. Benjamin's mother decided to video the behavior out of the curiosity. So she went and got the camera and started recording Benjamin. Now this is when something strange reportedly happened. When Benjamin's mother noticed a little shadow creature, saying that it was very skinny and humanoid shaped, while its skin looked to be gray in color, saying that this little creature ran across the room from behind Benjamin, looking as if it was trying not to be seen as his mother was filming. Now, while his mother did say that this creature gave off a horrible stench, an odor that she will not forget anytime soon, she also thinks that this creature gave off some kind of electrical interference, saying that it seemed to be interfering with the camera, which can be seen in the footage. Now you can find the footage here on YouTube. It's under F Real appears at Santa Fe, Argentina. That should bring this video up for you. Now the family claims there are more than one of these creatures inhabiting their house, and that Benjamin has played and talked to these little beings over the years. The family says that these creatures are not evil or malevolent, but that they do have a strange and very strong odor to them. So you know when they are close by. Even though they are not hostile, they do emit a blood-curdling scream at night. Now with any footage the skeptic says it's fake, and I don't know that much about CGI, but I think people are seeing something in Argentina that just can't be explained away, no matter how hard the skeptics tries. All they think they have to say is it's fake. But I just can't find a reason why someone would want to go through all the criticism to report a fake story. I've seen people get shunned by their own families over saying they saw something. So with that said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Strange sightings and encounters can cover a vast territory, ranging anywhere from ghosts to aliens, and even creatures of all shapes and sizes, with one of the strangest categories being that of goblins and gnomes, which is mostly straight out of fairy tales. Reports of this type of creatures, like gnomes, are taken quite literally most times, with their brim hats and lederhosen clothing, and don't forget about their beards. There is a large number of such encounters and sightings out there. The most common region for the world for these sightings is Central and South America, where the sightings and encounters seem to be abundance, while being more frightening as well. Now, before you think that this is insane, realize that sightings of gnomes comes from all over the world. It's not limited just to South America. It's said that these creatures are forest-dwelling beings and can range from 18 inches up to 3 foot in height. Some of these creatures are said to have magical powers, such as shape-shifting abilities and invisibility. Most reports of these creatures says that they can be mischievous tricksters, and they are also said to have a passion for stealing from people. It's been reported that they love to play pranks and enjoy tormenting young children. While it's said that they do sometimes help lost people in the forest, they are not received as being truly evil beings, just mainly troublemakers. While it's said they can be extremely curious creatures. These stories goes way back to these creatures, just terrorizing villagers. Some have even said that the creatures kills pets and livestock, if just to hurt or terrorize their victims. Now, one of the most well-known sightings happened in 2008 in Argentina, which is a country that is steeped in stories of these creatures. Now, this sighting was made by a group of teenagers that was just hanging out after a fishing trip, saying that it was later in the evening when this sighting happened, that they were just standing there and talking, when all of a sudden they saw something, that it looked to be a very tiny man stepping out of the dark, saying that this tiny man had on a wide pointed hat. Then this thing started doing a strange and weird sideways shuffle across the road. Now, one of the teenagers was able to get this on a cell phone. The young man's name was Jose Alvarez. In his statement, he said that they all were just talking about their fishing trip, that it was 1 a.m. in the morning, that he had took his cell phone out and was recording the others talking and joking, when suddenly they all heard something strange, like a stone had been thrown at them, saying they were looking around when they noticed the grass was moving. At first they thought it was probably a small dog or some other small animal. While watching the grass moving, something started to emerge from the darkness. Once they could see that it wasn't a dog, but that this thing was a gnome, they really became afraid at this time, saying that this was not a joke, that all of them are too afraid to go out anymore, that everyone in the neighborhood is frightened. He said that one of his friends was so scared at the time that they had to take him to the hospital after the sighting. Now, the video that he took is very short and not clear. I've seen this video before, but I couldn't get a hold of anyone to get a copy so that I could use it here for you all. But I did find this picture that someone posted that was okay for me to use. Now, this picture is very dark, with the light source being behind whatever this thing is. So is it a gnome? Looks like one to me. Now, it's been said by the skeptics that this is just a hoax, but there is some that says that this video wasn't CGI. Well, I'm no expert in CGI. I know you can do a lot of things with it, but when the CGI expert says that it's not CGI, then this had to be something that was there at the time. Now, Argentina has been the place for many of these type of sightings. So if you would like to hear more of these stories, just let me know down below in the comments. Now, this one is new to me. I grew up around the French Broad River, but I never heard of a siren or any other creature really growing up around here. But it does have a long and fantastic history. I only found out about this siren by researching. It was something that didn't even involve a siren. But I came across a sighting story about this siren, which I will be going over later in the video. But first, I would like to go over this legend with you. Now, this legend goes way back from what I can tell, all the way back to the Cherokee Indians, with one of the first writings coming out of 1845, which was a poem called A Tradition of the French Broad. This poem was written by William Gilmore Simms. This siren is said to lure men to their deaths while giving them comfort, at least till it's too late for the victim to act, when the vision of a woman turns into a horror show, at least from what I can tell from my research so far. One of the siren's best known stories comes out of 1896 from a book titled Myths and Legends from Our Land. It was written by Charles Montgomery Skinner. I would like to read a little of this story to you as it was written. Now, I hope you like this story by Charles Montgomery Skinner. Among the rocks east of Asheville, North Carolina, lives the Laura of the French Broad River. This stream, the Tuscala of the Indians, contains in its upper reaches many pools where the rapid water whirls and deepens, and where the traveler likes to pause in the heat of the afternoon and drink and bathe. Here, from the time when the Cherokee occupied the country, has lived the siren. And if one who is weary and downcast sits beside the stream, or utters a wish to rest in it, he becomes conscious of a soft and exquisite music blending with the plash of the wave. Looking down in surprise, he sees, at first faintly, then with distinctness, the form of a beautiful woman, with hair streaming like moss and dark eyes looking into his, luring him with a power he cannot resist. His breath grows short, his gaze is fixed. Mechanically he rises, steps to the brink, and lurches forwards into the river. The arms that catch him are slimy and cold as serpents. The face that stares into his is a grinning skull. A loud, chattering laugh rings through the wilderness, and all is still again. Well, I really like this short story, but is it truly just a story? Or is there something paranormal or supernatural happening in this river? I do know that most legends has a starting point, that something strange usually has happened in that area of these legends, something that the people of the time couldn't explain, or something that is truly strange and paranormal. With most legends, something happened to kick it off, but over time, the true occurrence that set these legends in motion are often forgotten or lost to time. While this siren of the French Broad River isn't known as well today as it was in the 1800s, but like I said earlier in this video, I found a sighting report from the summer of 2011. The witness says that he was 15 at the time of the event, that he had lied to his mother and had snuck out with his girlfriend at the time. They were going camping by the river, saying that they got to a remote location where the river had a nice bend and they set up camp. When he says that in the middle of the night he had to get up and go pee. He thinks it was just around 3 a.m. or so. While stepping out of the tent, he saw a man on the other side of the river, saying that this man was either naked or just in his briefs, which surprised the witness. While the man was just standing there, at first the witness thought that the man was looking at their tent, but then the witness noticed that he wasn't looking at their tent. He was looking down at the water. Now at this time, the man just started walking out into the water. The witness said that the river is very deep and wide in this area, saying that the man kept walking out into the water with his head down, looking at the water. Or could he have been seeing something that only the man could see? Makes you kind of think, doesn't it? Once the man was going deep into the water, he just dove in. Now the witness said that he waited and waited for the man to resurface, while he was thinking that the man must be some kind of diver or something. After minutes had passed, the witness said that there wasn't any bubbles and that the man never resurfaced. Just nothing, no sign of the man at all. At this time, the witness says that he got really scared and went back into the tent. Now, the witness says that ever since he witnessed this, that he started getting recurring nightmares, that in his dreams he sees himself wading out into the water. When he looks down at the water, that he doesn't see his reflection, but the silhouette of a woman. Now, the witness says that these nightmares continued up until 2018, when he went to a therapist to get help for them. He says that he was diagnosed with PTSD and put on meds for his condition. He says he don't dream anymore and he's sleeping fine for the first time since he witnessed the man go into the water. But that he does still suffer from a crippling fear of deep water. I really hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Like I said, I have never heard of this French Broad River Siren before. I was lucky coming across it on the internet. There are many more stories out there of these creatures and monsters, just like this one, with strange supernatural or paranormal abilities. I was looking today for a weird and strange story, just something to change up the day, when I came across a story about a teenage boy named Harry Anderson. This is one of those folklore legends, and I do love this type of stuff. Now this one comes out of Wisconsin. I think the original story was named The Story of Harry Anderson and the Trolls of Barron County. This story is true, and the writer says that he did research this sighting, with these events happening over 100 years ago, with the story taking place in 1919. It revolves around a young man named Harry Anderson. In the story, the writer stated that the boy was 16, but in some cases he was told that Harry was only 13 years old at the time. The story starts off with the Anderson family deciding to go on a family drive. Harry's father had just gotten a brand new Model T Ford. With it being a summer evening, the family hadn't chosen any fixed destination, so they just would drive around on the back roads while enjoying each other's company. They had been having a great evening, but it was starting to get late, so Harry's father decided that they better start heading home. It was already about 10 o'clock. As the Andersons began their way back home, they were on Highway 25, which at this time of night becomes a very dark and desolate highway, when all of a sudden their vehicle came to a dead stop. Harry's father got out to see what was wrong with the car. As he opened the hood with only the moonlight to see by, he realized that the car was in need of some oil. So with this, he became a little irritated. He went and got a small oil can from the back of the car. Now Harry's father handed him the can and told him to try to find a farmer willing to part with some oil, that he would stay with the rest of the family. So at this time, Harry started heading up the road to see if he could find help. With Harry walking through the darkness, swinging the oil can with his arms as he walked, when he came upon an old sign with worn letters. The sign read, Barron, Wisconsin. Now at this time, Harry realized just how far from home they were, over 60 miles or so. So knowing this, he quickened his steps, moving further down the road, when he finally saw a farmhouse. Not wanting to waste any more time, he cut across the field. Not as much known to what happened with the meeting with the farmer, just that Harry was able to get the oil that he needed. Now as Harry started back to his family, he made his way back onto Highway 25. And this is where everything starts to get weird. He noticed something strange moving towards him. At this time, it's said that Harry placed the oil can on the ground while straining his eyes trying to get a better look at whatever was heading towards him. What he saw was completely terrifying to him. Moving through the darkness was 20 strange-looking little men. Now terrified, Harry jumped off the road, moving behind a large tree. While hiding, Harry watched these strange little creatures pass him. He was thankful that they didn't notice him behind the tree. He kept quiet and watched with his eyes wide open. not wanting to miss this sight that was occurring right in front of him, saying that these little men were in a single file line, while he noticed that their skin was a very pale white, and they all were bald, which was strange to him, while they all had on these strange and crudely fashioned pants, which looked to be made out of old leather, that looked to be pieced together, while being held up by thin straps that went over their shoulders, with all of them standing no taller than a young child. He says that the little men was very focused on what they were doing at the time, which seemed to be marching. Harry also thought these small men were talking to each other, so he tried to listen, when all of a sudden all 20 of them broke out into a song, which at this time in the story, I think that the writer of this article said that he said it was bizarre and that he didn't make any of this up. Harry says that he was able to hear the song. Now, as the little troll-like creatures marched on singing, Harry said that it went like this when he was retelling the story. We won't stop fighting till the end of the war in 1994. Sound off, 1, 2. Sound off, 3, 4. Detail, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, the writer said he didn't make this up. Harry said that after the men finished their song, that they went back to talking to each other very quietly. When they came up to some trees next to the road, they kept marching into them and went out of sight. While Harry could still hear them moving through the woods, he didn't move till he couldn't hear them anymore. At that time, he headed back to his family as fast as he could go. His heart was beating wildly, and he was in shock for sure, I would say. When getting back to the car, Harry handed the oil can to his father. Soon they were back on the road again. Harry told his family and father what he had seen, and asked him if he had ever seen 20 short men walking in a single file. But sadly they had not. So did you like this little man sighting? Do you think they might be trolls out there in Wisconsin? I do have to say that this sighting report story is different. So till next time, stay safe and have a great day. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you can keep up with all of our latest videos. And thanks for watching those endless mysteries.